Welcome to the Horror Homestead. My name is GiBi, this is Ozzy, and this is Toto, and this is a video in an ongoing series I'm making where we break down an individual story within the ongoing Fazbear Frights anthology series of Five Nights at Freddy's novels. This is a book, it has 4 stories in it, we're breaking down one of the stories. I'm currently a believer in the Frights fiction fan theory, which states that this book is an in-universe novel published by Fazbear Entertainment along the lines of the Help Wanted video game, where it's taking some events from the past and remixing them into fictional stories to hide their truth from the public. So as we go, we're going to summarize, analyze, and theorize about a story in this series. And we're going to try to determine if Frights fiction is true. This is the final story in the Fazbear Frights series, or the final proper story. After this, we only have one final Stitch Wraith Stinger, and then a bonus non-canon book. This is Find Player 2. Find Player 2 was written by Andrea Wagner, and I do believe it is a fitting conclusion to our saga. Let's begin. We have 2 friends, Amy, the quiet one, and Mary Jo, the raucous one, who are at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. They're 11 years old, and they've been best friends since they were 3. Mary Jo is chewing with her mouth open, and then throws something at Amy. Amy says, "Why do you do stuff like that?" Amy asked. Mary Jo laughed again. "Because I can." This is subtle foreshadowing that Mary Jo will not be able to do things later because she's gonna die. Mary Jo is bobbing along to the music in the booth. We get a description of her physical appearance, and we learn that her hair is bouncing off beat. This is because her personality also is offbeat, and this is a great example of how to use necessary physical description in a book to also characterize the person you're describing. This is great writing, but unfortunately it's a bad creative decision because, as we're about to see repeatedly, this story has awful pacing, and this section is a slog to get through. Amy and Mary Jo are friends. Mary Jo wants to play the hide-and-seek Freddy's Maze game at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It takes us 8 pages from starting to know what their objective is, go play the maze game, to them actually beginning to play the maze game. The reason this is bad pacing is not because nothing between these points is interesting. There is actually something very interesting nestled between those plot points. It's because we, as the reader, have a roadmap of where the story is going, from the booth they're sitting in to the hide-and-seek game, which is like 20 feet that way. But before we get there, we need to sit through multiple flashbacks. We start mini-stories and then conclude those mini-stories, and then take a step, and then start a mini-story and then conclude a mini-story. So each time we're like, oh, I want to get to the maze. Too bad, you need to learn what's in Mary Jo's backpack. The hide-and-seek game itself is going to end up being a tense and slightly scary situation. A lot of this backstory about Mary Jo's upbringing, where she was abandoned by her parents, so she entered into the foster care system. She's only 11 years old, but she's already been through 5 foster families. She carries everything she owns in her backpack, and thus could run away at any moment, cough cough, could be told to us during the exciting action scene. Yes, it would be breaking up the action, but by breaking up the action, it would make that tense scene persist longer in our mind. If we learn what's in her backpack while Amy is going to be chased by the person she's going to be chased by, we'll read it with interest because we want to get back to the chase scene. Instead, when we finish the backpack scene, we're still just walking to the maze. It's especially egregious to do this in the beginning of the story, because I don't need to know Mary Jo and Amy's backstory to be interested in them. I just need to know what they're like and what they want. We've clearly established on the first page what they're like. Mary Jo chews with her mouth open, Amy likes reading books. Now we can know what they want. They want to go play the game. Amy doesn't really want to play the game, she wants to win the game so they can go home. But Mary Jo keeps wanting to play with Amy because she doesn't have any friends and likes being out of her foster house. So we know what they're like and we know what they want. Why do we need so many pages going over their backstory in such great detail? We don't. This intro really left a bad taste in my mouth, but that was washed away quickly when we were introduced to the creepy man. The girls walk toward the hide-and-seek game. The hide-and-seek game is behind a big grate in the wall that you have to remove and then crawl through. They comment that most people, including children, don't even know that the game is back there. We, the reader, might understand from this that the attraction is actually closed and they're not supposed to be back there, but that's never directly stated. While they're walking, they see a creepy man with greasy hair and bad teeth. Amy gets a bad feeling about him. I would say this is the field, but you don't need psychic powers to understand why a creepy man standing staring at a bunch of young girls is creepy. It's creepy. Mary Jo stands up for both of them and tells the creepy man to go away. And then he vanishes, and it's kind of like spooky, like, oh, he was just there, but now he's gone. Where'd he go? When I first read this, I had two thoughts. One, this was going to be a lesson to not judge books by their cover, because the man, even though he looks creepy, is not creepy. Or two, this was literally William Afton. The hide-and-seek game is behind a grate that you need to crawl through. After crawling through the grate to get to the hide-and-seek game, you end up in a little room that's described like an elven living room, with a small couch and it's a small room. It's a really, really small room. There's a console that you need to put your name into to start the game. One person is player 1, one person is player 2. Typically, Mary Jo is player 1, so she has to find Amy, who is player 2. Amy would go and hide, Mary Jo would go and find them. At the end of the round, they switch. Amy tells us that typically when she's the seeker, what she does is just sit there and read her book, and after a couple of minutes she goes and she hits the big red forfeit button, and then pretends that she just couldn't find Mary Jo. And whenever she's hiding, she's also just reading her book. She doesn't want to play the game, she just wants to read. The way the game works is there's a hallway that kind of looks like trees, like woods. There's this weird texture on the walls that's kind of like tree bark. And there's lights and there's ambient wood sounds, like monkeys and panthers. I think it says cougars, big cats. As you walk down the hallway, there's doors on either side of you. And what you do as the seeker, as you open a door and you look inside the cubby to see if the hider is in there. The only place the hider can hide is in one of the cubbies, meaning the only thing the seeker is actually doing is opening the closed doors as fast as they can. This is the worst hide-and-seek game I've ever heard of, besides hide-and-seek from the Five Nights at Freddy's book Hide-and-Seek. The doors also have two-way mirrors, so that when you're on the outside, you just see your reflection, but when you're on the inside, you can see out of it so you don't feel claustrophobic. We get this really weird detail, and because I know Scott's writing, I know that this will be important for the climax. We get this really weird detail that on any given round, only half of the doors are available. Basically, when it's your turn to hide, half of the doors are open and half of the doors are closed. So you go through one of the open doors and you hide in there. And then all of the open doors close and all the closed doors open. So when it's the seeker's turn, they don't need to bother looking in the open doors because they know you're not in there, so they only have to look in the closed doors. So basically, any given round, you are only using 50% of the doors. Meaning the game is dumber than I thought. It's not an open all the doors as fast as you can simulator, it's open half of the doors as fast as you can simulator. I don't get it. Today, Mary Jo makes Amy be the seeker first, and tells her that if she can find her in under 3 minutes, they'll go back to Amy's house and read books. So now Amy can't just sit there and forfeit, she has to actually find Mary Jo. Amy starts crawling through the tunnel trying to find Mary Jo. Then, the creepy guy from earlier enters the game, and he starts crawling in the tunnels after her. Amy gets very scared, and instead of trying to find Mary Jo, runs away. The exit of the game exits out to the back alleyway of the Freddy's building. The only way to leave this child's hide-and-seek game is to go to the dirty alley behind the building. This is also stupid. Amy thinks to herself that there's no way that the creepy man can find Mary Jo because she's hidden so well. And by hidden, I mean she's trapped. Even if the man hits the forfeit button, Mary Jo would leave her hiding space expecting to find Amy and find the creepy man. Or the creepy man could just open all the doors and kidnap her. So Amy justifies to herself that she's safe because she's hidden when she's obviously not, and she immediately regrets this decision. Because that night on the news, the creepy man has been arrested for kidnapping a different child, and no one can find Mary Jo. So a man with a history of kidnapping was right next to Mary Jo, and Mary Jo is gone. He killed her and hid her body because his name is Emmett Tucker. He's not William Afton. He's Emmett Tucker. We dramatically cut to a dream scene. In this dream, the creepy man finds Mary Jo and drags her out of the cubbyhole. But this isn't just Amy's dream. This is a reoccurring dream that Amy has. She has this dream for the next decade, because the story cuts forward to her college graduation in her dorm room. Yes, we actually just get this crazy time skip toward the beginning of the story. This has been probably, like, I'm not going to call it a plot twist, but this is one of the best developments, one of the best story pivots in Frights. I'm like, oh, we're reading about the stupid hide-and-seek game. Oh, it's not about hide-and-seek, it's about guilt. I got it, I loved it, this was great idea. Because Mary Jo's body was never found, and because she was a foster kid, a troubled foster kid, who had a backpack containing all of her belongings on her at all times, most people think that she just ran away. Also, she's a foster kid, maybe the police didn't work that hard to try to find her, that commentary is present in the text. But Amy and her mother definitely think that the creepy man got her, so Amy feels guilty about what happened. When Amy graduates college, she returns to her hometown to get some closure. Emmett Tucker, the kidnapper, has just been released from jail after serving his sentence for the kidnapping that he did do, and so Amy feels like she needs to speak with him and ask him where he put Mary Jo's body. So she drives to her old hometown and she stays in a motel. She ponders whether she should go out immediately and try to find him or wait for the next day. And we get this passage. Amy pulled her cute little red hybrid compact into the parking lot of the Riverside Motel just before sunset. When she turned off the engine, she tapped the steering wheel a couple times. Should she go now or wait until tomorrow? She squinted up beyond the motel's redwood siding and river rock-covered pillars. A reddish sun was sinking toward the glacier-topped ridge to the west. Almost blood-red rays painted the white expanses. Amy shivered. Tomorrow. What she needed to do could definitely wait until tomorrow. So this passage starts with her wondering if she should go today or tomorrow, and by the end of it, she decides tomorrow. So we as readers should ask ourselves, why? What happened between not knowing and coming up with the decision? Let's look at the paragraph. The motel has a redwood sign, and the sun is setting and it looks blood red. There's a lot of red in this paragraph, including Amy's car. So this should jump out to us that red is helping her make her decision. So what you should do is you should go back throughout the entire book and find instances of the color red coming up. And the color red does come up quite a few times. The booth that Amy and Mary Jo were sitting in at Freddy's was red. The pizza sauce that Mary Jo got on her face was red. Mary Jo made Amy a friendship bracelet that was red that she actually lost before the story began. They talked about it earlier. They thought that they lost it in the hide-and-seek game, but never found it, assuming that they'd find it one of these days. While Amy's crawling through the maze escaping the creepy man, she passes a smear of chocolate cake that a child had obviously brought in there to eat, and his broken plastic red fork is on the ground. The floor of the elven living room is red, and Amy's pants on the day that Mary Jo disappeared were a red color. So we should be on the lookout for more red images. And we get that in the next paragraph, actually, because we get a flashback to what happened after college graduation, but before she went to the motel. We meet Amy's friend Greta. Greta is rich, and she throws this elaborate graduation party that Amy goes to. We get a scene where Amy and Greta are in her swimming pool, and they're discussing Amy going home to try to confront the Emmett Tucker guy. Greta doesn't think that she should do it. She thinks, Amy, you were a child, you did nothing wrong, you need to get over this guilt. Amy's like, it kind of was my fault, so... Please trust me that there is subtextual implications that Amy might have romantic feelings for Greta. We get passages like this. It would have been so much easier with Greta along, maybe even fun. They could have turned it into a celebration of everything they had to look forward to in the coming years. They could have Could have ... Could have what? Had some smooches? Also, Greta's hair is red. The color of lust. You can't see Clifford. He's covered by one of the weirdest things I've bothered to put into a frame. Amy is not very intelligent. She might read a lot of books, but she's kinda dumb. This has been established throughout the entire book up to this point, but this next thing she does is the dumbest thing that she does. She wants to talk to Emmett Tucker, and she finds out that he frequents a local bakery. So she goes there to find him. And what you would think is that while she's there, she would confront him in public so that there's witnesses and he can't, this convicted kidnapper and possible murderer can't kidnap or murder her because they're in public. But instead what she does is sees him in the bakery and then follows him home and then knocks on his front door because she's stupid. This is when this story goes from not well written to one of the most unneeded things in the entire franchise. A lot of the problems with this story are that it's contrived, and this part is really dumb. So Mary Jo knocks on the door. Tucker comes out. Mary Jo's like, "I'm here to ask you where you put my friend who you murdered." And Tucker's like, "I didn't murder your friend. It's all a big misunderstanding. You see, you shouldn't judge people by their appearance because they have crooked teeth and greasy hair. He was never a creepy murderer. He was there to find his daughter." So Tucker is divorced. His wife got full custody of their daughter. He knows that their daughter goes to Freddy's, so he's there looking at all of the young girls trying to find his daughter. When he finds the hide-and-seek game, he goes in there and crawls through it, trying to locate his daughter. The other child kidnapping he was arrested for was the kidnapping of his own daughter. Taking your child who you don't have custody of is a very different kind of kidnapping than William Afton murdering children because he's a serial killer kidnapping. So it's a big misunderstanding, which is stupid because you'd think maybe somewhere in all the articles and news broadcasts about this man that Amy or her parents would have seen that the other child that he kidnapped was his own daughter because of a custody battle, and not that he went around and just grabbed kids. But no, because of plot conveniences, they never learn this piece of information. So Tucker's there like, hey, I know you accused me of kidnapping your friend, but I'm innocent. Amy refuses to accept this, pulls out her taser, and tries to tase him. Tucker then has an also not really reasonable reaction, and grabs her and carries her into his house and locks her in his bathroom so he can call the cops on her. So now, we as the audience reading the story, trying to predict what happens next, trying to solve the mystery in our heads, should be like, okay, if he didn't kidnap her, what happened to Mary Jo? And there's two options. One, she saw outside of the window in her cubbyhole that Amy left her, and therefore her only friend in the world abandoned her, so she decided, you know what? I'm gonna run away from home today. Or, something else happened. Amy escapes through the bathroom window and decides to go to Freddy's. Freddy's has been completely remodeled, it's now a 2-story building, and it's a different kind of restaurant. Amy wants to go there to try to look for clues. This is weird and doesn't really make any sense, but because this is a fictional story for children, we the audience know, okay, she is going to find something there. Amy goes into the restaurant, her waitress's name is Mary, this ends up not really mattering. She tells her, hey, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. When she goes to the bathroom, she doesn't just tell the waitress this for fun. She says, I'm going to go to the bathroom. When I get back, you can take my order. She goes to the bathroom, but actually sees that there's a maintenance closet. So she goes in there to look for clues, which makes no sense, but she ends up being correct because at the back of the maintenance closet is the grate that leads to the hide-and-seek game. You see, when they were remodeling Freddy's, they didn't notice this huge area in the back with the hide-and-seek game, so when they rebuilt the restaurant over top of Freddy's, they left it there. And I can buy that. I can buy that the people at Freddy's either didn't communicate with them, maybe Freddy's was abandoned for a long time before they bought the building. I understand that. My problem is that the hide-and-seek game leads to an exit door that leads to the alleyway, meaning that not only did they notice that their square footage was significantly less than they previously thought, but there's a mystery door on the outside of their building, and they never once thought, where does this door go to? That's weird. So the hide-and-seek game is still intact, whatever. Mary Jo enters and finds that there's a game still in progress. She finds, because they had to enter the names for Player 1 and Player 2, that the game that's still in progress is a her game with Mary Jo. Nobody after their little game where Mary Jo disappeared had ever played hide-and-seek again. And you know what? That might make sense. Maybe when the police were there searching for Mary Jo, they put up caution tape. Maybe they told Freddy's to actually seal the gate. They didn't want any more creepy men following girls into the game. So that's fine. I get it. The police closed it off. Amy crawls through. She's not entirely sure what she's looking for. She is very paranoid that Tucker or the police are on her trail. She finds the big red forfeit button, and she hits it, which means it's now round 2. That means all the doors that Mary Jo could possibly have hidden in are open, and all the other doors are closed. So now it's round 2. The game doesn't end until the end of round 2. Amy decides to just leave, but as she's leaving, because again, remember, half the doors are closed and half the doors are open, as she's passing by an open cubby, she notices something red on the inside. It's her friendship bracelet. There's a friendship bracelet inside the cubbyhole. It's the one that she lost before the start of the story. So she actually crawls inside the cubbyhole to pick it up and reminisce and be like, it's so sad, I lost my friend and I lost the bracelet. And the bracelet is symbolic of my friend. And then, because she entered the cubbyhole, the game detects that she's chosen her hiding spot, and the door behind her closes, and now the round can truly begin, where the seeker has to come and find her. Amy is like, oh, that's scary, kind of, but I'm still gonna leave, so she tries to open the door from the inside, but her door is broken, because convenience. It's convenient for the storyteller, not convenient for the character, obviously. She's trapped inside. The door will not open from the inside. It's broken. Amy's, like, pounding on the door. She's trying to break it. She's pushing as hard as she can. She uses her fingers to try to, like, claw out the little rubber part that's, like, between doors and walls to, like, force the door open. So it's not just broken, it's so broken that you can't get out. She looks through the window to see outside of her cubbyhole and sees the cubby door across from her, which, remember, had been closed since round 1 began 10 years ago. It had just opened when she hit the forfeit button. And it turns out that door was also broken and couldn't be opened from the inside. 'Cause guess what's in there? She now knew what had happened to Mary Jo. "Player 1, find player 2, Freddy's voice ordered. Sealed inside a cubbyhole for 10 long years, Mary Jo's desiccated corpse had practically mummified. Curled inward, drawn down probably by the dried up skin, Mary Jo's body was embracing her backpack, which she held like it was a baby. Had it given her any comfort? It didn't look like it had. The skin drawn tight against her bones, Mary Jo's face was brown and leathery, frozen in what looked at first to be a rigid smile. Mary Jo's lips were gone, and her mouth was pulled back from her big teeth. Whimpering, Amy understood, of course, that Mary Jo hadn't been smiling when she'd died. She'd probably been screaming, crying out for someone to hear her, to find her. Amy frantically shifted positions and kicked out at the door with both feet. It didn't do any good. She didn't have the room to pull her feet back far enough to get any power behind the kick. They just thudded the door ineffectually. Outside the cubbyhole, Freddy nudged. "Player 1, find player 2. Amy pounded on her cubbyhole door again. She kicked at it over and over. She threw herself at it. It didn't budge. Clearly the game wasn't functioning right. The doors weren't going to open. Amy's heart crawled up into her throat. She began to hyperventilate, and she started begging, "Please, no." Once again, she pressed her face to the little window as if she could look for help. Nothing but Mary Jo's silent corpse looked back at her. Her mummified corpse stares at Amy as Amy tries to free herself, and realizes that she too might die the same way that Mary Jo died. This is probably one of the better Frights-like ironic karmic deaths. So many times protagonists just die because the story world is cruel. Like, there's a whole book where it's like, sometimes bad things happen, just deal with it. Right? Like, the real Jake died of cancer. This is not karmic or ironic, it's just a thing that happened. But Amy, left to die the same way that she left Mary Jo to die, is ironic. She's actually being punished for something that she did. With that said, it's something that she did when she was 11 years old, and does not deserve to die for it. But at least it's interesting. She wasn't like Mary Jo. People cared about her. Her parents would come looking for her. Her friends would look for her. Her car was in the restaurant's parking lot. Kim would remember her. Mary would remember that Amy had asked where the restrooms were. They'd know she was in here. But would they? Really? No one knew the hiding maze was back here. Hold on. Interrupting this quote midway through. Yes, they do. On page, Amy told Greta about the hiding maze. She would have definitely told her parents that that's the last place Mary Jo was, and she would have told the police that that's where the creepy man chased her. Of course people know where the hiding maze is. Why would anyone look in an old crawl space for a missing woman? An old crawl space is exactly where you would look for a missing woman. Maybe they'd see the grate and... "Find player 2, Freddy's voice intoned. Amy lost all semblance of calm and gave in to panic. She started wailing, and then she shrieked. She shrieked until her throat burned and spasmed, and then she swallowed and she screamed some more. Amy screamed until her lungs forced her to stop and fill them. Then she started crying. She stopped at first, and then, thinking about her abandoned friend, she wailed. Mary Jo had died the same way she'd lived, Amy realized. She'd died because no one had cared enough about her to do whatever was necessary to take care of her. "Find player 2, Freddy's voice repeated. Amy pounded on the door of the cubbyhole and screamed at the top of her lungs. The book goes out of its way to mention how Mary Jo's death was also the result of parental negligence, which is a topic that also must be examined when it comes to Tucker. We'll discuss this more in the analysis section. So Amy's trapped in the cubby. She thinks that her friends might come and look for her, but also maybe they won't. Maybe they won't find the hide-and-seek game behind the wall. We then get the post-character dying ironic passage where a character who doesn't know they died is now the point of view character and they just go about their day and they don't know what happened, but we the reader knows what happened, and we're like, well, do you get it? It's dramatic irony. We get the perspective of Mary the waitress, who's like, oh, that lady who asked me to go to the bathroom never came back. She must have just left without ordering. And then she goes about her day without a second thought. The reason this doesn't really work is because, again, Amy's parents and friends would come here and look for her. The police are also actively looking for her because Tucker called the cops on her. So they'd say, oh, her car's in the parking lot. The waitress would say, oh, she went to the bathroom. They'd go into the storage room, and they'd see that a bunch of boxes are pushed away from a grate, although she did technically try to, put them back, but still, they're moved away from the grate. The grate is off of its hinges, and there's something back there. They would find her. But then we cut back to Amy for the last section of the story. This is how Find Player 2 ends. From the vent near the hallway leading to the restrooms, an ever-so-faint scream reached out into the dining room. Its echo lingered for a couple seconds, but the sound was inconsequential. It didn't stand a chance of being heard. Analysis. Okay, it doesn't stand a chance of being heard can be like, foster kids don't have a chance of being heard. That would be an interesting interpretation. Besides that, nope, the story doesn't work. Amy told her parents about the creepy man in the maze. He was arrested for the possible kidnapping and also the disappearance of Mary Jo. When Amy goes and talks to Tucker, he says, oh, I remember, people thought that I took your friend, meaning he was questioned about her friend, meaning even if for whatever reason Amy didn't tell the police that that's where she was with Mary Jo when Mary Jo went missing, Tucker would have told the cops, yes, I was in that weird maze thing looking for my daughter, but I didn't take Mary Jo and I didn't chase Amy. The police would know that hidden maze game exists. Amy's parents know about the maze. Greta knows about the maze. Meaning, for Mary Jo's body to be back there for 10 years means the police... Mary Jo's foster parents, maybe they really did suck. Amy's parents, maybe they never bothered to look for Mary Jo herself, although I doubt that. No one in town, not the cops, bothered to go into the maze and look in the closed doors. They didn't bother to look the last place Mary... I'm like... I can't find my words. They didn't bother to look the last place Mary Jo was known to be before she disappeared. I don't believe that. Police are incompetent in real life. Yes, but it's not just that contrivance that makes this plot happen. It's so many other contrivances that build up to make the story just poorly thought out. This plot hole was actually pointed out to me by Connie of Dual Process Theory, and I agree that it really hurts the story, but to me, it hurts the story so much that I just cannot bring myself to like it. The pacing was awful. There was a couple paragraphs that were worth going over for literary analysis and investigation of language and recurring motifs, so it's not horrible. It's not awful, but the story is contrived, and the main character Amy has to be an idiot for it to actually happen, which you can have stupid main characters, but when your character making stupid decisions is the only thing driving the plot forward, it's kinda lazy, especially when the only thing we knew about that character when she was 11 was that she was smart, but I guess she's stupid. So yes, I do not like this one. It's a low C tier. But just because I don't like the story doesn't mean it doesn't have anything valuable to note. We've discussed how the color red comes up a lot, from Greta's hair to the broken fork. The main reason this matters is because the bracelet was red, and the blood-colored red sky the first night that Amy returns home is red. It seems like Amy associates red with the event of losing Mary Jo. It's possible to juxtapose the different instances of the color red in the story, and come to the conclusion that red stands for her guilt for what happened to her best friend Mary Jo. She has anxiety and she has guilt and reoccurring nightmares about what happened to her. So it's possible that her apprehension to move things forward with Greta to make her her new best friend could possibly be because Greta's hair is red. I formed attachment with girl. Red happened and I lost her forever. I want to form attachment with girl, but she is red. Will I lose her forever? It's like a psychological thing. It's in the text. I don't know if Andrea Wagner meant it, but it's there for us to read into. Red is also the color of stop signs and red lights. There are two instances of red in the story that make Amy temporarily stop. The red sun makes her stop and do it again tomorrow, and the red bracelet makes her stop her escape and go into the cubbyhole, which then traps her forever. So red things have stopped her. We get a lot of physical descriptions of Amy when she's a child, and then when she's an adult, the book basically just says, Amy hadn't changed, so her life stopped. The bracelet itself is also interesting. If her and Mary Jo had gone looking for the bracelet while they were children right after it went missing, this wouldn't have happened. So, her death comes from not viewing the friendship bracelet as important, but also not viewing her real friendship as important. The bracelet and the Mary Jo are the same, locked in a door for a long period of time. I like the connection between the two things. I like how early the bracelet was set up. I like that it's red. I think there was a lot of intentional, really interesting things put into the story by Andrea Wagner, but I think Scott's storyline saying, what if there's a hide-and-seek game, and, like, the door is always half open and closed, and a girl goes in, but then she, like, forgets her friend, and then, like, she dies in there, and then she goes to look for her friend, and then she gets trapped the same way. Like, that was Scott's story, and it just doesn't work. Two of the main cast members also come from broken families. Mary Jo is abandoned by her parents. Tucker will do anything to go and get his daughter. Maybe it would have been good if he kidnapped Mary Jo. Maybe he would have given her a good home. That's a joke. That's totally a joke. If Tucker was given visitation of his daughter, this wouldn't have happened. If Mary Jo had good foster parents, this wouldn't have happened. But at the same time, if Tucker didn't try to kidnap his daughter, it wouldn't have happened. And if Mary Jo hadn't forced Amy to play a game that she didn't want to play, it wouldn't have happened. And we kind of talked about this in... What was the sign book called? I keep thinking Step Closer. It's not Step Closer. It's the other one where someone gets hit by a car. What's the sign book? I just read it. It was like last week. What's the... Kids at Play. Oh my god. In Kids at Play, I talked about how you have a bad parent and you have a bad child, and they're both equally as responsible for what's happening in their poor relationship. But we have to treat the adult as being more complicit because they're an adult and the other is a child. So yes, ultimately, it's Tucker's fault, because him wanting to kidnap his daughter led to Mary Jo's death. Did Amy do something wrong? Yes, but she's 11. Did Mary Jo do something wrong? Yes, but she's 11. Did the cops do something wrong? Yes, and they're the cops, so they shouldn't do something wrong. We should expect them to not do so. If society was perfect, they would have done the investigation properly. If Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, which is designing games for children, hadn't designed a death trap, this wouldn't have happened. So should Amy be guilty for what happened? Should she feel guilty for what happened? No. I mean, it's understandable that she does, but ultimately it's not actually her fault. It's not her fault because she was a child. It's not her fault because all of the adults around her failed her. Did Mary Jo deserve what happened to her? No. Does Amy deserve what happened to her? No. But these are all morality tales. These are not telling you, hey, you're going to read about a horrible person, and when they die, you're going to cheer and clap. Again, except for Kids at Play, which I did cheer and clap. You're supposed to read these and go, hey, I'm here to scare you. It's like the boy who cried wolf. I don't think he deserved to die because he lied, but if you lie, you might die, so don't lie. If you abandon your friend, they might die, so don't abandon your friends. The waitress is named Mary. Amy abandons Mary Jo and doesn't go and look for her. Mary, the waitress, abandons Amy and doesn't go and look for her. It's like a Mary, Amy, Mary sandwich. Freddy's voice line of Find Player 2 will repeat forever, and Amy will hear it until she dies. So her whole life, which was defined by her being like, I need to find Mary, I feel so guilty. Now her whole death will be defined as, no one is looking for me. I really appreciate the time skip. I did like the ending. I loved the description of Mary Jo's body. I loved the circumstances for getting here and how it's set up earlier. I love how it's in Amy's character. I love how she's, again, it's karmic punishment for, no, I'm going to say karmic, it's ironic punishment for what she did. But all of the enjoyable moments of this book were sandwiched between horrible pacing, slog to get through, exposition dumps, and stupid contrivances. Also, we need to bring up the fact that maybe Amy doesn't die, maybe her friends and family do come and save her, but I don't think that's the intention of the end of the story. The back of the book says, standing up for yourself can be hard. Amy finally works up the courage to ditch her loudmouthed, annoying friend at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But when it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's, even the most well-meaning actions can reap horrible consequences. She doesn't work up the courage to ditch her, she runs away because there's a predator chasing her. So I would not say that that's accurate. The well-meaning actions kind of reap horrible consequences. So the well-meaning action is finding her body and the horrible consequences getting trapped. But I really don't think that that really applies to Amy. I also don't really think that Joel stood up for himself when he hit that child with his car. Anyway, that was Find Player 2, the final real Frights story. And I think it was a great way to end the series, because it's painfully average, just like Frights. Up next, The Stitch Wraith. I would like to thank my August patrons: Brandon, Lauren V, Morgan, Nan, Scott, Sophie, Suka, and Wooly, as well as Billy, Chamikon, Klaus, Kopacker Fan, Eliza, Halmar, Johnny the Night Guard, Kira, Lauren R, Rose, Sebhar, Thamagata, World's Greatest Bard, Ya Boy Peachy, Zany Face, and Zimmy, as well as Courtney, Emily, Gremlin, HHD, Jinx, Jose, Mustard Shirt Guy, Rolo, and Riley, as well as Ellie, Jojo, Mariuna, and Ray. I would also like to thank my YouTube members, my Night Guards. Those who made it through Night 1: Mad Dog, Q Aaron 404, Theory Chum, Lydia, Pickle Pepper 900, Hyperdroid, Spark Saturn, Sleepy, Nolan, Arcadeus, Toolshed Inc., Liz, Violet Poppy, Haley, Sophie, Poppy, Riley, JT Kelly 18, Golden Productions, Louie, and Jackie. Those who made it through Night 2: Mrs. Trap and ya boy Peachy. Those who made it through Night 3: Crimson Dragonfly 07, The Moving Marker, iBlue Renditional W, and Just Because. Those who made it through Night 4: Toby, A. Dan the First, Love Cat X, Pablo, Booty, Tome, Withered Sigma, Leanne, Yoda88 Yoda, B-Dub CEO, Kiyomi, Bonafide, Rattler, Kylie Smiley, Rebecca, Henry, Newt, Dalton, Amanda, Lionel, Gremlin, James, Absolix Guardian, Asker, Fritz, Heboy, Amy Oh My, iShrine, Mach CXII, Moon Knight, Big Fat Liar, Squix, Psalm, Uncle T, Vice, 4, Marcel, Harrison, Joshua, Best Xerxes, Mushtomb, and Icemint. And those who made it through Night 5: Momo Peaches and Suka. Freddy!